This is Passepartout, People and Places, brought to you by Jules Verne, taking you around the world, sharing memories and introducing you to the people at the heart of everything we do. I'm Abby, and in this series I'll be delving into past adventures, inside stories, future journeys, inspiring you to discover the wonders of the world. Hello listeners, I am delighted today to have a very special episode where I'm joined by Jules Verne Tour Manager, Gerry. Hello Gerry.
Good afternoon, Abby.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Thank you for joining us in our podcast studio in London. It's very nice to have you here.
Thank you.
First of all, last episode we had a tour guide on and we were talking all about what a guide brings to a holiday and how a guide can enrich a person's holiday. But you're a tour manager, so that's slightly different, isn't it?
It is indeed.
So how did you become a tour manager?
I basically sent my CV into Jules Verne.
Ah.
My previous career, if you like, it was 20 years plus experience, if you like, of doing corporate event and event management. So anything from Europe to Asia.
So that's where your skill set sort of moved over. So you retired and then decided that actually...
Retired early, Abby.
You retired early. And you decided, this retirement, it's not for me. I fancy travelling a bit more.
Miss the travel. And the people, of course. And just the whole thing.
So what was your first tour? Where was it?
My first tour with Jules Verne was Venice. Which is, and lovely, how lovely experience. Just to follow on from that, then there was a lady on my first Venice tour who rocked up, unbeknown to me, into Croatia last year, which was fantastic to see them, yes.
Oh, wow, so it really did come full circle.
Most definitely, yes, and that lady's gone on to book another tour to Croatia again for 2023.
Do you find a lot of that? Do you find that actually you often see the same people but in different areas of the world?
You can do. There was an episode last year where I met a couple that was on a Jules Verne tour with me in Seville, and I thought they were coming on to my next tour, but they were travelling with someone else independently. But actually to bump in them at the airport, and it's quite amazing.
Really is a small world, isn't it? You're walking through these different places and all of a sudden you see someone. Do you find that sometimes you might be in, as we said, the Silk Road and all of a sudden you hear, oh, hello, Gerry?
Most definitely. That has happened on more than one occasion.
Gosh, that must be a really surreal experience to be in the middle of the Silk Road and all of a sudden someone pops up and says, hi, Gerry.
It is.
And you last saw them in Seville.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
So how many tours in total have you done with Jules Verne? Do you know?
Probably 50 plus, maybe.
And how long have you been a tour manager for Jules Verne?
This is going into my 8th year.
And you still love it just as much as when you started?
I do, even more if that's possible.
Do you get excited when the new brochure comes out because you see new destinations? Like we've just launched a new destination of Pakistan. And we've also got some of the Channel Islands. So do you get really excited when that brochure lands on your doorstep?
I do. I always keep abreast of what's going on and what new tours there are on, from my own perspective. But a lot of friends and family members ask me now in terms of what new tours might be coming on or what's in the bag.
And talking about the brochures, people do look for tours with tour managers, don't they?
They do. I mean, in fact, some of the guests that I've met on tours specifically look only for tours where they know their tour manager is going to be present.
And you often get messages from customers saying, are you going to be on my next tour?
I do. I kind of, yes, I've had that most recently as well with someone in Croatia last year. I've now booked for this September and asked if I'm going to be managing it.
So tell me a little bit about what is a tour manager and what does it mean to be a tour manager and a representative of Jules Verne?
From my perspective, Abby, I would say in terms of a tour manager works closely with tour guides, but primarily are there to look after the guests to ensure that they have the best possible time. I often, when I get asked this on trips sometimes, I relate it to ask them to view their tour manager as their insurance.
That's a really lovely way of putting that. I really like that. So you're right. You're there. You're a friendly face. You tend to travel from sort of a London airport with them. So sometimes you often see people in the departure lounge.
Correct. I prefer to do that. I prefer to meet them. If people I'm flying with, I make a point of meeting them before we land at the destination. Sometimes if I don't capture them at check-in, I determine where they're sitting and go and introduce myself whilst the plane have taken off.
So that's the thing. So I guess your sort of job starts from the moment you arrive at the airport. You're on the hunt for customers to introduce yourself and they can start their holiday, but you're in work mode, you're ready.
Correct. Yeah, and just to reassure them that in the event of whatever help they need, we will do our utmost to ensure they have the best possible time and experience.
And that's the thing. I think you're right. Actually, holidays can be emotional, can't they? I know, there's certain places around the world where you visit and you've wanted to visit for such a long time. It might have been a bucket list trip and you arrive and you are just sort of overcome with emotion of seeing whether it be the pyramids, the Taj Mahal, some of the wonders in Croatia with all the national parks. It can be really overwhelming and you just want to have a chat with someone.
Yeah, most definitely.
So some of the tours that you've done with Jules Verne, you work alongside the tour guide, is that right?
I do indeed, yes. And if I'm fortunate enough to do a repeat tour, it's even better if you work alongside the same tour guide.
So, for example, our average group size is sort of 15 to 18 people, but sometimes it can be slightly more sort of heading into the 20s.
Can be.
So sometimes will you and the tour guide sort of arrange some free time and then you might go off with a group of customers that want to see something in particular? How do you sort of work on a day-to-day basis?
Obviously, larger groups would, instead of one tour guide, then we might have two. So I would then split my time alternate between both groups. But that works extremely well.
Amazing. Sounds like you have the best job in the world, Gerry.
I do. I absolutely love it. I love it.
What do you love what's your favourite thing about being a tour manager?
I guess it's the people more than anything, be that either suppliers or crew on boats or crews or customers primarily, because they're my first priority, obviously, to make sure they have the best possible time, best experience. But it's people. It's very much a people's business. It's lovely to be part of them experiencing, as you say, some emotional times in terms of if they're seeing, say, Victoria Falls for the first time, or could be anything in terms of like even down to Capri, the smell of lemons and lemon groves. And it's sharing experience like that with people, which is quite a privilege, actually.
I can imagine, you're right, because you are welcomed onto, our customers' holidays as essentially you go as a representative, but I'm sure you leave as, part of their friendship group.
I do, indeed. We've got a couple of groups, one from a river cruise, where there's 6 people that meet up once a year, and yours truly been invited to that. So I do go along for that as well.
So do you sometimes look when we give you the list of who's going and recognise a few names and get excited that you're going to see people again?
I do indeed, but also that sometimes work in reverse as well. So because sometimes people who've done repeat journey with Jules Verne have retained my phone number, and I might get a text from them saying that they're on the next tour to Portugal and look forward to seeing me again, which is even a better bonus, really.
I think that's wonderful. And I think being a tour manager, you've kind of got the best of both worlds, because you are doing a little bit of guiding, because, you are going to these destinations, representing the company, taking people around, but you're working with a guide who's a local guide, an absolute expert. So like you said, you really get to embrace the destination yourself and embrace the social side of touring, which is so important.
Most definitely. And as far as guiding is concerned as well, that when I travel with my wife or family sometimes as well, then the guides, that even independent guides, then they're worth their weight in gold.
They are, really. I think we've said this before, but I think a guide can really make a holiday. It really brings the experience alive. Most definitely,
yeah. Particularly those that are passionate about either the culture or the history or the fact that they love the country and their destiny, really.
Talk to me about Croatia. It's a coastal-based tour, am I right?
It is. It's an ocean cruise on a wonderful ship. Fantastic crew, great itinerary with a balance of relaxation, culture.
I've heard from a lot of people actually that Croatia is a real hidden gem. And I know in recent years it's become a lot more popular. I know we've seen a lot more departures, but still it's not overcrowded, and some of the national parks you go to are just beautiful and you feel like you're the only ones there.
They do. The national parks are really come into their own. Kirka National Park and Plitvich, for example, then Plitvich in particular, the colour of the lakes, you've got to see it to believe it.
And I've heard a lot about these swim stops as well. And people keep saying that there's beautiful coves and lovely calm areas of the sea. So what happens there? Do you just talk to the captain and decide that today's going to be a swim stop? Or is there set places that you know are beautiful to swim and you might see some lovely marine life?
Wherever it is, it's guaranteed to be either secluded bay, somewhere extremely safe for swimming and diving, and on board there are snorkels and flippers and everything else that we need to ensure guests have the best possible time, including float aids and lilos, and for those that want to do it, paddle boarding as well. We've got the added bonus as well, of course, for non-swimmers. We can let the dinghy down and take them into the shore there to give them some time to explore that at leisure.
Oh, take me there now. I'm just imagining
Highly recommend it, Abby.
Being on the water, listening to the waves, going up against the boat, lying on my lilo. Take me out of London and take me to Croatia now.
You need to come.
So where else have you been as a tour manager? Not just cruises, is it?
Oh, not just cruises, no. I've led a couple of trips to the States, and a lovely trip we did from Memphis up to New Orleans on the Mississippi, which was fantastic. And the other one I've been a few times is the Silk Road, of course, to Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. And I recall the 40th anniversary for Jules Verne, then there were a couple of bespoke tours again that included Turkmenistan as well, which have the opportunity to go there was fantastic.
Do you find that actually going as a tour manager is fantastic because when you go on your own holiday, you become your own tour guide and tour manager? Or do you still like to have a tour guide when you go on holiday?
If it's a destination I'm not familiar with, I like to have a tour guide. You know, in terms of, for example, my wife and I, we travelled recently to Vietnam, Cambodia, and like Angkor Wat, we were both keen to see Angkor Wat, but the best way of doing that, we got a local tuk-tuk driver and a local guide, and they took us to Angkor Wat, and we had the best possible time. The guide was absolutely superb.
And that's that emotional connection, isn't it to the place again?
It is, and again with a guide so passionate, so knowledgeable. Just added bonus, really.
I think, like you said, guides do really make the holiday, whether it's for a day like you did, whether it's for 10 days, it just really makes the holiday.
Certainly do. We've had guides where we've actually, after the guided tour, he's taken us to meet his grandmother in Jamaica, for example. Last year we were in Jamaica, did a tour, and he took us to meet his grandmother who was celebrating her 98th birthday. So it was fantastic. Things like that stay with you.
They do. And I think we've said this before on the podcast. So the podcast is called Passepartout, People and Places, because we are all about the people behind the places that you go to. And this is the thing, as you being a tour manager and working with tour guides, you are the people behind the places.
Correct.
And actually, the memories that people have tend to be from those interactions with people. So like we just spoke about the swim stops in Croatia, that's not the main reason to go to Croatia, but it's probably one of the most memorable.
It is.
That you get all of this stuff out and you allow people to swim in the water.
Yeah, most definitely.
So talk to me about the Silk Road. The Silk Road is extremely popular. Lots of people are going there. You've been there as a tour manager before.
Yep.
You would be there as a tour manager to make sure that everything runs smoothly, if there's any language barriers, to get people from A to B, restaurant recommendations if people want to go out on their free time.
Yes, and obviously we got the language barrier as well. Then the guides, they really come into their own then.
And I'm guessing as well, as a tour manager, like you said, you've made friends from this, but you're helping build friendships between our customers because you're introducing people. You might have overheard a conversation where you sit there and think, oh, I know that customer
Correct.
would be interested, and you make people
you
gel.
can add to that. That's right.
So far, has there been a particular area where you can't wait to get back to as a tour manager?
Well, apart from Croatia, I guess it would be sort of Andalusia.
Okay.
Andalusia from the water, which is based in Seville, but that's another great trip. Great crew. Alhambra Palace, of course. Some long days, but well worth it. And a little bit of cruising as well. It's primarily Andalusia from the water, so based in Seville, but we do sail down to Cadiz, into the Andalusian region, horse shows, and it's, again, a fantastic itinerary.
So is there a place that you remember your first real authentic travel experience?
From both a corporate point of view and from a personal point of view, I personally like nature, so therefore I love South Africa and Zambia and Botswana. Been fortunate enough to do a couple of game drives as well, and a balloon flight over the Prinsenburg Game Reserve and things like that would be fantastic. But I like cities, if you like, cities by the water. So I love Sydney, Auckland, Vancouver, San Francisco, Cape Town.
So what is it about cities because cities in themselves, city breaks are wonderful, but cities by the water are very different, aren't they? It's a very different type of city break.
Yeah, they are.
So what is it that attracts you to that?
It is the water, I think, in terms of more than anything else, the infrastructure around it, And
how important, actually, the water is to many of those cities, especially the port cities.
Yeah, definitely.
So talking about port cities, let's talk about Porto. One of my favourite places.
Me too.
And I know you've been a tour manager up and down the Douro several times. So your experience of Porto and the Douro Valley, what's your highlight of that area?
The Douro Valley, I think, in terms of, from my perspective, I think is one of the most scenic rivers, actually. I think surprisingly so. Not everyone expecting in terms of it to be nice, but not as nice. Also, you got the opportunity in the programme to go down to Salamanca as well, which is a big hit, big winner. Although a long day, it's a fantastic day. But across the Douro, the port tasting, again, great ship, great crew, and great infrastructure, great local guides. Highly recommended.
Yeah, the Douro Valley is something special, isn't it? And I think people always are so surprised with each time you go through a lock, and there are many on the Douro.
There's some impressive locks, actually.
There's the deepest lock in Europe.
Correct.
And you do have many of these fantastic locks, which are a feat of engineering in themselves.
They are.
But every time you seem to go through a lock and you rise up and you're rising up, and once you come through and that lock opens, the scenery changes once again.
It is incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
And it's quite a dramatic change, isn't it?
It is, really is. Yeah, it really is.
And then, like you said, when you've got Salamanca, yes, it can be an early morning and a long day, but my gosh, is it worth it?
Well worth it.
The square, the university buildings, the cathedral.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. And also, you're ticking off 2 countries. You've done Portugal and you're in Spain.
Correct.
So
always a bonus there.
For those who are keeping count of their countries, it always ticks 2 off. Yeah. So you mentioned about the port tasting and things like that. Now, I know you're working. I know you're a tour manager. But you do get to sit down and have dinner with our customers, maybe have a small glass of wine in the evening and toast the day. Is that one of your favourite parts of the day, when you get to sit down and relax in the company of our customers?
Oh, most definitely. And an added bonus as well, if I can get them together before dinner for pre-dinner drinks or a cocktail before dinner, that's always works well as well. Invariably, sometimes there's entertainment in the bar afterwards, or if someone wants to go for a stroll or whatever and they need some directions or whatever, or need some company, then I'm happy to help.
I think that's the wonderful thing, and the difference again with a tour manager versus a tour guide. A tour guide will be with you, they'll be guiding, but doesn't often in the evening sit down and have that relax and that detox time with you. Where a tour manager, you do, and you can be really social and you can stay up as late as the customers want or as early.
Correct. Yeah, most definitely. Find that balance, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's really special about being a tour manager, is like you said, you have that balance between, a professional job that you are doing and you're there, but you also have that friendly nature about you, and you can have those conversations and you can sit there and talk about the day, and as the piano's playing in the bar and or the entertainment's going on in the background.
Magical, Abby.
Okay, so I ask everybody on the podcast this question, and I'm going to ask you this question now.
Okay.
So you have travelled to many places, more than I can list, but where in the world has captured your heart the most?
I would have to say Rio. I just love the city, the beach, Copacabana, you've got Ipanema, you've got Gloria for nightlife, vibrant nightlife. You've got Corcovado, Sugarloaf Mountain, and of course you've got the Tijaco rainforest as well, which a bit of everything for everyone. I just love it.
It sounds wonderful.
I love it.
So Rio was the place that captured your heart the most.
Yes.
But where
we'll go back.
But where is next on the list?
Nearer to home would be Verona, because I'm keen to go to the opera in Verona. But I'd like to explore more of sort of Central and South America, Latin America. So I'm looking at sort of Colombia, Nicaragua, Guatemala, something like that.
And that would work really well because you love nature so much as well.
I do.
Gerry, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome, Abby. You're very welcome.
I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I really appreciate you explaining the difference between a tour guide and a tour manager for all of our listeners.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
We hope you've enjoyed the latest episode of Passepartout, People and Places. Look out for our next episode, where we'll be talking to more guests about the people and places that have inspired them the most. We'd love to hear your feedback, so please do get in touch. Thanks for listening.